Wow.
Yes. I went going over to the antique, and then I was behind. Oh.
Aaron was coming in, it could have been a little sketchy.
We didn't get here too often tonight, did we?
This is for your signature.
Oh, it is?
Like probably. Not doing that.
Yes, ma'am. C11 is the last one to withdraw.
Okay, who's withdrawing it?
I believe it's.
Thank you.
Is that a shotgun shell? I thought you were throwing like 12
Okay.
gauge round.
You can borrow it if you want it.
Yeah. Hey, Nikki, I'm gonna pull C30.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got a start time. C34 I'm gonna pull.
34?
Okay.
Oh, is that a full
C30,
discuss?
for Commissioner Waitman is be a discuss.
C30?
C34.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you write that one down?
No.
Because if not, I can't. One way or the other.
Get my
I don't
sheets
know
ready.
whose it is though.
Commissioner Waitman.
Yep. Yeah,
And
you
it's
just
be
said
to
something about
discuss section.
So,
So the sidewalk
Is
is
Andrew's
northbound.
withdrawn?
On the northern side.
Like on our tour.
It comes all the way from Walgreens, all the way up and stops.
Our sports guy.
And then
Adam.
on the south side, it's just as coming up from Grove, and then it ends at the entrance to. So it doesn't connect, there's nothing that connects. That's right, we're talking about putting a crosswalk over here and a crosswalk over here.
C11 is being withdrawn.
So anybody in my community who wants to hit the crosswalk is gonna walk over
C34 is
to
going
get
to
up
be a
to here, or walk over back here.
C11
That's just some of the things.
and what's the other one?
so crosswalk
C34
would
is
be
a
better
Crosswalk
at.
is slated to go here. So the crosswalk here would be perfect.
I'm going to go grab the.
But I think what the reason that they're doing the distance is because there's a big curve when they're coming across the other way.
Just gonna text it, thank you.
And the
This
crosswalk
would make
here
some more
will
sense
slow
here.
down the curve.
If you're going that way, you're gonna walk that way anyway, so you have a sidewalk, you don't need to cross. If you're
Yeah.
coming from here out there, you need to cross. Back here is better
Is there
than
any,
there.
there's nothing I needed to sign as far as
Sidewalk here, that crosswalk
we don't have any-
on the south side.
proclamations?
No, we don't have
Community
any.
on the
Oh, wow,
side
I would have done
But the sidewalks
international
should do
day.
pretty good. You can just
It's
cross there,
International
safer
Day.
anyway.
Yeah,
It's easy.
Not
And
just
then it's still
international.
all these people here, I mean, they got the sidewalk to get
my
all the way
staff
to
slipping.
Bill all the way up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so the sidewalk goes from Walgreens all the way up to
yeah,
here.
and then, so right here is one of the crossings, and then the other one was proposed to be America.
All right, Sonia have the pictures?
What's that?
Does Sonia have the pictures?
Good morning. I would like to call to order the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners meeting of 10:03:40. Here for February 20th, 2024. At this time, please silence all electronic devices and mute your microphones. Please rise with me for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
O merciful Creator, your hand is opened wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Present.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Here.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Here. Okay.
Thank you. District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Here.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Here. Now is the time for public comment. Citizens are given the opportunity to comment on any item coming to a future agenda and coming before the Board of County Commissioners, other business under the board's preview. Today's public comment will be handled as follows. We will take public comment from those in person, then we will take public comment for anyone on WebEx, and then those, of course, they have to be, the WebEx has to be on queue. We request that when you address the board, comments are made directed personally, or not directed personally against any board commissioner or team member, but rather to the issues. This provides mutual respect between board members and the public. After stating your name and address for the clerk, 3 minutes will be allowed for you, the activated time. After 2 minutes, a single beep will indicate you have 1 minute left. When your time is up, 2 beeps will sound, and you should close your comments. WebEx participants will be disconnected automatically when their time is up. Madam Clerk, do we have people signed up to speak this morning at public comment?
Mr. Chair, yes, I have 3 people who signed up. I have Trevor Mackey, followed by Gail Schwedberg, followed by Cheryl Orchard. If Mr. Mackey could come to the podium. Right to the podium. Please state your name and address. Okay. Please state your name and address for the record, and then you can proceed.
Okay. My name is Trevor Mackey. I live on Ashen Avenue in Newport Richey. I'm the Vice President of the Sunshine Park Homeowners Association, and morning Chairman Oakley and to the other commission members here. Thank you for having me. Have a couple, I'm new to Florida, so I'm trying to learn how your government works down here, and it's confusing at times.
We have a class for you. We'll tell you about that.
So our homeowners association presently has a issue, I should say, our homeowners association is in Representative Starkley's
Commissioner.
area.
Commissioner.
District.
Okay.
So we presently have a code compliance issue before the courts, and I must say, code compliance has done their job efficiently and properly. So I agree with even though it's against us. It's a tit-for-tat item. My observation of your code compliance here is that it is more, it's not proactive. It's responsive, and I wish that they had, excuse me, wish they had enforcement people, and they had somebody who was observing. We see them go by, drive right by an observation that
Big
is
people mind.
totally in non-compliance, but they do nothing. You have to fill out a form, and I think one of the problems with the form is it's not anonymous.
Yep.
I wish that it could be kept anonymous. I would be nicer to have it that way.
This board would like it to be anonymous as well. But the
We'd
state
like to have
legislature
proactive
has
code
changed
enforcement,
that
too.
for them.
And again, I don't know how your system works here.
What, Mr. Chairman, why don't you, we'll get your information from my assistant Katie, who will come out and meet you outside, and I'll enlist your help to have a more proactive code enforcement, because I would like that very much, and to help speak to our legislators who've made the law that we cannot be anonymous. It's not a good thing. I don't know if, we're trying this year to get that changed up in Tallahassee, but I think we may have to wait one more election up there. There's a powerful person who changed it, and when he's out, we may be able to get that back.
So you got your assistant coming out and meeting him?
Hopefully, she's hearing.
Okay.
If you go in that door right outside.
You're aware of that, so I appreciate that,
Yeah.
and it sounds like there is some.
Oh, there's my code enforcement head over there.
There.
Okay.
He'll take care of you.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
thank you, sir.
And the other, I've had go ahead.
Well, just that if there are a lot of violations in your neighborhood, the code enforcement could enact a sweep That's something that you could talk about, and they'll just go through the whole neighborhood, which we've done in your area before. I've walked it before, and catch all the violations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
And one other thing, I've had,
Can you turn his time back on?
Is the
You
timer
paused
still
his
going,
time.
or what?
Can you turn his time? Thank you.
difficulty finding out who I should call is for whatever, health issue, code issue, has been difficult. Is there a handout that lists, this is who you should call for health issues or animal issues? Is there that type of document
they
for the
have that
general
information.
public that's easy?
We have
to-
an app called My Pasco where you may be able to find all of that,
Okay,
or our website, right?
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so QA should refer it to whoever needs.
Okay, yeah. You'll find all that information online.
Okay, and one of the
Mr.
issues,
Kabala? You okay?
one issue that our president has informed me of, that at one time there was a rental registry being created. Is there such a thing now, or has it ever come to fruition?
So we created one, it lies with our sheriff, and we're supposed to be getting it back and doing something with it. That's an administrator question. So we'll find out where that is. I'll put that on my
Because that
commissioner
is a
items.
difficult thing to
Yep.
do within.
We're not supposed to talk back and forth, so,
Your time's up, sir.
yeah.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
the time
The
here.
gentleman in the back will help you there.
Okay.
Okay?
He's not going to escort me out, is he?
No.
Gail Schwedberg is next. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, and then you may begin.
Yes, my name's Gail Swedberg, 4917 Largo Terrace, Newport Richey, that's in the Green Key area. Ever since the storm in August, I've been flooded twice, one for the storm, one for drainage, stormwater, tide water, rainwater. Some of my neighbors have been flooded 3 times since the storm came through in August. Not too long ago, I'd say a year and a half, 2 years ago, we were promised, or it was spoke about, having some type of maintenance in the area. Funding for drainage did not come through, and so nothing really has been done. So one of my questions or concerns is, when is that maintenance going to begin, and what is going to be done? On January the 9th, I had called in to Public Works Newport Richey and reported all of this. At that time, I got a work order number, and I was told by Tanya that she was going to mark it high level, which I guess means it's a priority. I've called back every week since to find the status, and it was assessed, but nothing has begun yet. It was finally registered, well, let me go back. I called it in on the 9th, it was registered on January 11th. So here we are, February 21st, and nobody has been out to assess. You're aware, remember, the drains that were put in and everything. Residents have gone with their own rakes and everything, trying to clear something out because you can't tell if that flap is open or shut. Okay, so when it rains or when we have high tide, we have had a lot more water than normal. There are some drainage pipes on Del Prado, I was told by a resident who is not here today, were cut. I don't know when they were cut. A lot of people are aware of it, some not aware of it. So I live at the T in the road, Del Prado and Largo Terrace. So anything that comes down Del Prado comes in my yard and my there's only 5 houses on Largo Terrace, and the neighbors' houses. So again, since the storm, I was flooded twice, and that was in the middle of reconstruction of my home. And some neighbors 3 times. So not only 1 flood claim, some of them have 2 flood claims. Now my mortgage, because of my insurance, in April is going up $457 a month. My mortgage went from $697 to $1,155. I have to move. I'm a good resident. I'm a good person to have in the community, along with all my neighbors. You know, we want something done. There's been people that have been working on this for years. So I appreciate your time.
Okay.
And please consider everything I said about maintenance.
There's a gentleman in the back of the room will help you.
Matter of fact, I'm sure maybe meet with you and Cheryl as soon as maybe they're done speaking. But we did get funding in place next door, but I know we're trying to work with the city as far as to clean out their drainage because it connects to our drainage. So Branford, if you could, after Mrs.
Got a
Orchard.
gentleman
Jason's
in the
back
back.
there.
There's a gentleman in
Oh,
the
you
back
got Jason in the
waiting
back,
on
okay.
it, so.
And also, just one quick
Okay.
last comment. What happened to the $2 million that was supposed to be going for the Green Key Day?
That's what I said. So we did get funding right beside where you're at. So we're trying to incorporate something together. We're trying to work with DOT for up the street a little bit as well.
Just been a long time. Should have had maintenance prior to all this.
And I agree
It's a
with you.
lot.
Okay,
So with Jason right in the back?
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next person signed up is Cheryl Orchard, followed by Cindy Scarda, followed by Kathy Julian.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for letting us get up and speak this morning. I'm going to turn you some books.
Name
in
and
because-
address, please.
6719 Manor Beach Road, Newport Richey, Florida.
Okay.
I have some booklets because there's no way. I
Move
can
to
cover-
receive and file?
Second?
Got a motion second. All those in favor, roll call vote.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford. District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
I think we're having trouble with it.
Okay. District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Aye, motion passed. Okay,
I made these booklets up because there's no way I could cover what's been going on since 1994. The problems in there, the lack of follow-up. We've gone to meetings. We finally got $2 million from the legislature money, which is not grant money, it's legislature for drainage. We were told that in 2023, it would start, but would not be finished till 2024.
Are you speaking of Green Key?
Green Key.
Okay.
Now, on the south side of Green Key, the city is going to put 66 townhouses. I don't know how they're going to bring the dirt in. They're not going to bring it through Sea Forest. This is a sample of what our roads is like. This is what we travel on every single day. They fixed the flat behind 6647 in 21. It was sent from, we had association in there in 1994, asking for it to be fixed. That flap stayed broken for 26 years. That bayou flooded our entire neighborhood. We're higher on Manor Beach, and the reason we're higher is because when the city come in to put sewers in, they could, if you walk that street, I invite everybody to come look. On the corners of Green Key and Largo Terrace, they've got lime rock. They got so much lime rock that they just brought the dirt up higher. My neighbor next door is elevated. Her front yard's a swimming pool, has been since that's happened. When she asked the county to bring in dirt, they said, no, you're going to cause flooding on somebody else. Now, when the electric company come in, they brought some sod in, which helps some. But all that water floods her driveway and has since they come in and put those sewers in just after 93. We're underwater. We're losing neighbors because they have to keep going on their insurance. We all know what happens there. After a couple floods, what they do to them, they condemn the houses. They have nothing left. Or they raise the insurance so much that they're on an income of under $2,000, and it ends up costing them almost $1,200 or $1,300 without utilities and food to eat. How do these people survive? Then we have the LLCs come in there. They don't maintain the properties that are there. The sheriff's office, we never see a sheriff's office in there anymore, especially since the counties took over the jails. We get nobody. We're hanging out there with all the homeless people that are sleeping under our porches. Had a kid under my back porch with a hatchet. I called the police. The police said, they're gone, we can't do anything. I said, don't you think you should call DCF and check and see if that child's in endangerment at 1:30 in the morning? This is what we live through every single day, and this is a piece of the road.
yeah.
And now, if they bring that 66 townhouses in there, that's going to bring more water, because the 66, what they put on the corner of Manor Beach, They didn't finish the swale. So now, instead of the water coming up halfway in the driveways from the beginning of Manor Beach all the way to Largo Terrace, that water goes up to their door thresholds if it don't go inside.
Your time's up, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank
You have a
you.
nice day. I invite you to come to our
Branford, is someone
neighborhood.
back there that can talk to her?
Branford, if you would go with Jason as well and talk this thing through a little bit, because, you know, the legislature, when they allot money, they want to see something done with it quick, so we need to get rolling on it.
Thank you.
Next up is Cindy Scarda. Name and address for the record, and then you may proceed with your.
My name is Cindy Scarda, and I am at 29157 Cochiti Lake Drive, San Antonio, Florida. As a concerned citizen, I'm very upset about that Live Local Act and how it's going to be impacting our county here. Seth Waitman was very good at speaking at our Wesley Chapel Republican Club meeting. I'm secretary of that club. But I also want to bring attention to the board, some other bills that are coming down from the Senate. One is Senate Bill 1628 and one is Senate Bill 1624 that continues to undermine our local autonomy, and it also jeopardizes environmental integrity. If you look at Volusia County, they're battling these bills because they want to bring in these fuel tanks, 20 million gallons of gas. Some of these tanks are 40-foot tall. They're going to be built next to 2 miles from residential areas. They're calling them fuel farms and resiliency facilities. But I think it impacts all Floridians, and it will come to impact us in Pasco County because it continues to erode our citizens' property rights by undermining our county commissioners, our master plans. I was up in Wisconsin in our small town. I was a town board supervisor. I was very involved in zoning, very involved with helping write our own master plans. But these bills undermine density, height requirements, can change the total trajectory of neighborhoods. And I think it's a continual assault on our property rights as citizens, and also our right to be locally represented by you. It really takes away your rights as county commissioners to do your jobs and to do the jobs that everybody in this room have elected you to do, and that is to represent our interests, not to have some state legislators legislating what happens in our very own communities as far as our property rights. So I think you as a board should be proactive, not reactive, and really looking at some of these other counties and what they are experiencing due to some of this proposed legislation. These fuel farms, and that company is looking at 5 to 7 other locations throughout the state. So I'm appalled that we have no say in density. We have no say in these developments that impact our rights, our homes, our families, our children, our neighborhoods. It's appalling to me. So I hope you're proactive on these bills. I do have an article that I would like to, I only copied one, so I'd like to leave it for Seth. But as a board, I would
Move to receive and
proactive,
file.
Second.
not reactive.
By roll call vote.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
very
for your
much.
comments, and we certainly appreciate what you've commented on today.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Aye. Motion passed, 5-0. Okay, the next person.
The last person I have signed up is Kathy Julian.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Julian. I live at 10232 Worthingham Drive, Worthingham Way in Newport Richey. And I wanted to say one thing that I noticed driving in here. Great use of a building that was empty for a very long period of time, and I see you moved the building into there. Great to see a building being repurposed rather than torn down or new structures being put up. That's great. I wish that some of these people with all their car washes would look around and go, how am I going to make money with this car wash that I haven't even broken ground on yet? I know Seth is aware of it because I heard Seth speak also on the Live Local. And I just want to say I think Seth is doing a great job. I've heard him speak a couple times. Anyway, the reason I'm here to speak this morning is I have a resolution that was prepared by another organization in the state, and they're trying to present it to every Board of County Commissioners, asking for a resolution calling for the additional measures to secure the border and stop the invasion of our country and the transnational narco-terrorist criminal organization activity and protect our communities from imminent danger. I hear from people every day how scared they are about what's going on. And you read on social media, everybody talks about the homeless people. They're not homeless people like we used to call bums. These are scary homeless people. And we need to do something about it. And this is an attempt to get all the counties to speak up and speak in unison, so possibly something can be done. I do have 5 copies, one for each of the commissioners.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion second by roll call vote.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0.
This was actually my commissioner's.
And the other thing I wanted to say was, I always read on social media, people say that Pasco County is the worst and all that stuff, and I always attribute that, and I always say, you're people that have never traveled because you haven't been to other places. You're just very small-minded when you feel that way. But then in this resolution, it says in here, in 2023, Pasco and Pinellas County, which is District 6 for the legal, reported the greatest number of total deaths from fentanyl poisonings. I guess that's in the state. That's really scary because we're a small town. It shouldn't be happening here. And it's not your fault, but I'd like you guys to put your voice behind this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Was that the last person signed
So,
up?
Mr. Chair, that's the last person signed up. Don't know
What
if you
about
do an all
WebEx?
call.
Anybody on WebEx?
No one's on WebEx.
No one on WebEx? Anyone in the audience wish to speak that did not sign up? Come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm
Yes, sir.
John Michael Moran, the President of the Pasco County Professional Firefighters. It's always a pleasure to come before you when given the opportunity to recognize your ongoing efforts to support the brave men and women of Pasco County Fire Rescue. Today on your consent agenda, as item C18, is the ratification of the new collective bargaining agreement between Pasco County and the Pasco County Professional Firefighters Supervisory Unit. And we are proud to report that the agreement achieved overwhelming support from our battalion chiefs and shift commanders. I'd like to take a moment to thank the county administrator, the Assistant County Administrator for Public Safety, J.J. Murphy, Director Hitzman, Chief Perez, and Assistant Chief Ryan Gwen for their commitment to getting this agreement finalized in just a few short months. Their collaborative and compromising attitude toward this process is always greatly appreciated. The highlights of this agreement continue to build upon the idea of a more proper work-life balance, prioritizing the mental and physical health of our firefighters, leading to long and healthy careers for our members. So thank you again for leading by example and for your support of the new agreement. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the audience wish to speak this time? If not, we'll close public comment. We'll move on. There's no resolutions today to be heard. We'll move on to consent items. I have a consent sheet upside down. Yeah. I have C24, pull and discuss. C29, withdrawn. C31, withdrawn. C33, pull and revise. C11, withdrawn. C34, discuss. Is any other items that the board wishes to pull at this time?
Move approval of the remainder of the consent agenda.
Okay, I got a motion
Second.
and second by roll call vote.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Okay, we'll start with pull and discuss is C24.
C24, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So it's in my district here, it's been a it's nice to see this project coming forward, but there's a couple of points I want to bring out, that I did talk to staff from before when they were setting up how this was going to be designed. If we put the pictures up. As you see the line coming across from 19, going from left to right, there's a big pond that's there. That's a stormwater pond that I'd like to get cleaned out, and I've talked about it several times before. We're trying to find a way to get it done. All the rainwater in that area goes into that pond. So over the past 50 years, tons of silt have gone in there, and a heavy rain will tend to cause flooding in that area around it, instead of being able to take the water in. Between the silt in there, the contaminants that are in there aren't a pleasant sight. It's a nice little area to kind of walk around, and if I'm going to put a sidewalk around half of it, I think we should put around both sides of it.
Agreed.
So is this in the city, or is it in?
It's in the county.
It's in the county?
Yeah, it's in Jasmine Lakes development. The sidewalk project runs up, down and through. There's a school that's actually just to the north, Dayspring Academy's elementary school is right above there. So they would like to see, and they asked for this when they got there a few years back, to have a sidewalk going in there for the residents to come back and
Do
forth.
you say this is in a development?
No.
It's, well, Jasmine Lakes is, it's already, it's been.
It's
it was
around
built
there,
fif-
but that's not a part of the actual property of the Jasmine Lakes?
It's not, well, I'd say, we used to actually Jasmine Lakes used to maintain it, the Civic Association went defunct, but there's no CDD or anything else. It's just an old development that's been there that doesn't have a CDD that's mandatory to join, so anything that's out there would be voluntary.
Okay.
So
Well-
we have now taken over the maintenance of that whole area anyway, and frankly, if we do put the sidewalk around the whole area, it's actually less grass to mow, creates a better amenity for the area. I do have a cost savings measure too that can be offset here. If you look at thank you very much, Sonia. If you look at the picture here, it shows the red line that's right there. The sidewalk on the north runs from there all the way down out to Walgreens, out on Little Road. That sidewalk may not need to be replaced.
Where
So
are
it's-
you talking about? Because I don't see a red line.
There's a little red dot
There's a red dot there.
on the left side of the screen.
Oh, the red dot?
Yeah,
It says Jasmine
on
Boulevard?
Jasmine Boulevard, yeah. So from right about that point, there's a sidewalk that runs from there all the way down to Walgreens,
Going to our right?
going to the right.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not sure how good it is or how bad it is. I've looked at it, it doesn't look bad. But there may be something where we could say, okay, we don't need to do it there. Maybe we put it on the other side. Maybe it's only a 5-foot sidewalk. Also with this picture, there's a crosswalk that's going to go at that red dot there, or even down closer to Maricopa. Maricopa, right after that, there's a heavy turn that's here, and there's a bunch of, there's a retirement home type thing, an assisted living facility that's there that has been, let's say, hit as it make the turn. So I think if it goes back to where the neighborhood is, the crosswalk probably there makes more sense as opposed to up the street further, especially anyone going heading the other way can just stay on that sidewalk. So with those adjustments, I don't think the thing needs to come back to us, but I do definitely want to see the circle around the lake done, and then let them go look and see if do we really need to replace the sidewalk there and what the plan eventually will be. I don't know, if
Branford,
Nick,
does this fall under your team, Branford?
so I see Nick Urin's in the room.
Comes Nick.
They've got a sidewalk right there.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nick Uren, your county engineer.
Yes, sir.
And yes, we have spoken with Commissioner Mariano, and we are aware of these requests. Just for context, I want to say both that I really appreciate the investment that the commissioners make in the details of our projects to ensure that we are constructing the best infrastructure for our communities. And then I also want to note that we have received a grant through the MPO planning process, a Transportation Alternatives grant for this pathway. It will be an 8-foot pathway all the way from US 19 to Little Road, and it will include crosswalks at particular locations that we will work out together with the community and the Commissioner's office.
Okay.
We are going to be using raised crosswalks along the corridor as a traffic calming measure
nice.
to ensure that the speeds within this community are appropriate for the character and the environment that we're seeking to create.
All right. Do we have funds to take care of this pond? Do we have funds to take care of
That's
this
more of a
pond?
public works question. I can speak to the pathway, and then Jason and Branford maybe can chime in on the cost associated with maintaining
Okay.
the pond. I know there's been
Okay.
discussions about that, but
Mr.
I
Chairman?
think they'll fill in the details
Yep.
better than I do.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So just remember that, and I don't know whose responsibility this pond is, but this could be the HOA's responsibility. And just because the HOA went under doesn't relieve them of the responsibility of that pond. So we have tools because, to handle that. It's called an MSBU. Because I've had many a neighborhood come to me and say, our HOA went under and, you know, we're supposed to take care of these ponds. Now we want to hand them to you. And no, because there are many HOAs who are paying for the amenities and the ponds, and now you're going to ask them to pick up the ones who decided not to pay the HOA fee anymore? I think everyone has a
It should
responsibility.
be on those citizens,
And
yep. I
So
agree.
we see this a lot in my district, and a lot on the west side when we have these older neighborhoods. But I am all for that sidewalk going around that pond. But as far as taking over any other responsibilities, that is the neighborhood of Jasmine, whatever, because I think I saw they have a clubhouse down the street.
Clubhouse was, when the club went under, it was donated to the school.
Okay, I thought I saw something down on the right. But anyway, anything more than that, I would say is responsibility of the homeowners living in there. And if, you know, I would encourage them to get together, and that's a way to kind of reestablish an HOA, so.
Bradford, can you come back and talk about this pond? Or how we'll take care of this, or?
Is it our responsibility?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Bramford Atumo, Assistant County Administrator. We have established that we have maintenance responsibility. That pond benefits the county in terms of stormwater flowing off the properties and the road. So the team has been working in that area. I think they've gone in there, maintained the grass and all that. But that maintenance responsibility falls on us. In terms of doing the work, yes, Public Works has the internal resources to get it done and the contract on hand to get it done. I'm not sure of the schedule. If Jason is here, he can respond to that. But yes, there are plans to maintain that pond.
Okay.
And if I could,
Yes.
Bradford, you've got a phenomenal team. I mean, they did another project over in Gulf Highlands that there was an old pond that was there that was like flooding out all around. And that was one of our very successful stormwater projects down at Ashwood. By cleaning that whole pond out, what you do is you open the whole thing up. And watching your guys in there with the mucky mucks,
Yeah.
I mean, Minzy mucks, right?
Did it get cleaned up?
They did phenomenal.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
these
good.
guys are skilled.
Nasty.
And this is like this is even easier, because that one had like a cliff to go up. This is like a simple
Yes.
drive in and go. So I know you guys can do it, so rather than even spending extra money on a contractor, I think you got a team that could get that done.
Yes,
No
we
doubt
do
in my
have
mind.
the in-house team, the capability to do that and the equipment to get it done.
Okay.
Okay. So let's get Nick back up on the podium here.
All right, thank you.
So Nick, when we talked, and obviously the conditions of MPO and of what the DOT wants to do, et cetera, they picked one side to the other side. Is that pretty much what goes on?
That's correct. I was going to make that point, Mr. Chair, just so that the commission understands. We applied for a grant to construct the pathway from US 19 to Little. The grant specified the location of the pathway, and the grant will fund the cost for design and construction in that location. If we want to do more than that and build additional pathway segments, then that would have to be done with county resources. And so I don't have any problem with receiving commission direction to allocate additional resources, but there will be a gap between the cost of the pathway and the additional segments that we would construct to close the loop around the circle, around the lake.
So maybe if we looked at it a little bit closer to like the existing sidewalk that's already down on part of it, if I didn't do all of that and I did the difference to what's around here, because I think this is, I mean, to go tear up something and go put more asphalt down doesn't make a lot of sense if it's in good shape, and again, I want to check it out first. And then if you have to do a different section of it, maybe the other side of the road, whatever, so be it. But this is such a strong benefit, and you get a school that's right there as well. One person going one side, the other side, I think it's a worthy investment to get done. Plus, if we're doing the maintenance anyway, if I've got an 8-foot path going around it, that's a lot less mowing I got to do as well anyway. So if the board would allow me to work with Nick, work with DOT, see if we can extend the grant out, or come back with what the cost would be to go do it this way.
To do the balance of it.
We can do the balance, but let me see if I can go get the grant first with DOT. I think there's a reasonable argument to get the whole thing.
Okay. All right. a motion or?
So I'll make a motion to approve with taking a further step with DOT to try to expand the project.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. By roll call vote.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Aye, motion passed 5-0.
All right, and Nick Branford, thank you guys very much. You guys are awesome. Appreciate all your great work.
Okay, C-29 is withdrawn, 31 is withdrawn. Pull and revise is C-33.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Keith Wiley, Director, Parks, Recreation, Natural Resources Department. I jumped up too quick there. The flag football and Employee Appreciation Day kind of slowed me up. I'm sure there's others that are feeling the same way this morning, but, so we had to modify the agenda memo to remove the execution language and references to the original quote. They weren't necessary, so that is the change in front of you.
Move approval?
Second.
Motion and second by roll call vote.
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Aye, motion passed 5-0. Okay. Move to, let's see, C-11 is withdrawn. C-34, discuss.
Thank you, Chair, that's mine. Keith-
Okay.
Keith's 2 for 2. So C-34, there's 2 items on there, but one item, and Keith can go a little bit more detail, at the corner of 52 and 41, so the southwest corner behind the gas station, there's 1,000+ acres, old Florida farm. And we brought it forward, we worked through this all last year to bring it forward to the ELAMP board for consideration for a potential acquisition because it ties into the well fields, and it's, a nice 1,000-acre tract that just could tie in for so many benefit to the public and, water and preservation. But there's a couple of challenges with it, and there's a mitigation bank on there on a piece of it. But what's the committee called, Keith?
It's the Environmental Land Selection Committee.
So the Environmental Land Selection Committee voted, they think the land is probably protected. They voted not to add it to the list. I respectfully disagree with their decision, and this is no cost to the county. We think to the future on preserving tracts of land, unless this farm is on the list, the county can't even have discussions about potentially acquiring it or finding a way to make a public benefit out of it. So I'm hoping the board will consider adding it to the ELAMP list. There's no charge, there's no fee, it costs us nothing. But once it's on that list, it just gives the county the ability, moving forward, if there's an interest in finding a way to purchase that land for public benefit, that the opportunity is there. I just don't want to be, I want to be careful because pieces of land are disappearing, and just to have the option there, I think would be good. So Keith,
What's
you
the
have any
exact
further detail?
location of this piece?
So it's at the corner of 52 and 41 on the east side,
Southeast.
or southeast side, yes.
Oh, southeast, I thought
sir.
you said southwest a while ago.
That's the Tibbetts property?
No,
It's on the other
it's the other side.
Connerton
I was
side?
thinking,
Yes, to the north.
Yeah, southeast.
I was thinking that was part of Swift.
Yeah, I thought that was Connerton
Here it is on-
Preserve.
Yeah, well, it was a part of that original development, yes, and then,
Well, it's already a preserve,
The
isn't it?
jail is here.
Can you pull that up?
What's the property owner? Who is that? Connerton?
so there's a principal owner group, and then it also is actually owned and operated as an active wetland mitigation bank currently.
Is that not the Connor Preserve?
No, that is not the Connor Preserve. The Connor
privately
Preserve is
held.
further east.
It's further to the east.
Yeah. So,
Which
yeah,
is
you
a
can see the
part
Connor
of
Preserve is,
Swift Mud
yeah.
No, I can't.
This is Connor Preserve over here.
It's all this corner.
Oh, crazy.
This whole corner.
No, wait a minute. Oh, which way am I looking?
I always thought that was the preserve.
I'm looking to the east.
Here, if we have a,
Yeah,
Talking
so
about
there's,
this area
so
in
this
here.
is basically,
This is the
Commissioner
Connor
Starkey,
Preserve.
this, if you could see, this is the Connor Preserve here. So that's the existing Water Management District property.
Right.
The subject in question is,
I went to the ribbon cutting of that.
I don't know why it's
I always thought that was all the way across. That was when Weatherford was in office.
Anyway, yeah, the different property that you're talking about. But the one that's on the list today is, again, south of 52 and right next to 41.
Okay, and I missed it. It's not on the list? Did the
No.
owners
So
put it on?
No, yeah, so the process is it was nominated, the Environmental Land Selection Committee, because of the conservation easement that's required through the bank, basically recommended not for us to pursue the acquisition. I think what Commissioner Waitman's referencing, and he described the process very well, once the board, so that's the required process is that we present the recommendations to the BCC for them to ultimately approve the action. But once it's on the denied list, staff cannot, we can't negotiate any further. We can't explore options on what could or couldn't happen. We've never actually pursued a bank like this before, but once it's actually denied, then we don't have the authority to even negotiate with the agent for the property. So I should say there's no obligation either on either side through this action.
Can there be trails on there?
Yes.
So that's part of the discussion, correct, yes.
Okay, well, I move to put it back on the list.
A little more discussion?
Go ahead.
Keith, if there's a wetland mitigation bank, that means the property's going to be protected, right?
Yes, correct.
It's never going to be developed.
Well, that'll be reflected in the value of the purchase.
Why do we need to
Also
buy it if
correct.
it's already protected?
That's to my next point. Why do I want to spend money when I don't need to if I got the land protected? The whole thing's about protecting land. This is going to keep, if we buy this land, I can't go buy other land.
But the price could be very little.
So that was
Here.
the point I was going to make.
Yeah.
Is the price could be different.
Yeah.
And so, but
It
right
would
now,
be.
we can't even have those negotiations. So I think what the commissioner's asking is let's include it on the list, let's have some talks. We're not committing to purchase anything at this point in time.
Right.
Let
But
me-
we can't have the negotiations or the discussions on it to see if there's other things or price points that could be different unless it's on the list. It's the process, it's the way the process is structured.
I understand, but I mean, just logically, do I want to go down that road? The other thing is, if you have a wetland mitigation bank, that means somebody who's trying to do some development, if you have to have local mitigation, this bank's already established, I don't know how many acres there are left, but
Well, that,
do I want to really take that out of an option for somebody else coming around?
And that's kind of devil's in the details, Commissioner. So I don't think that in the exploration, I don't think we could even actually decommission the bank. So you wouldn't close that down as an option for other development projects to use it as a bank. I think, quite honestly, and I got to be careful because, again, at this point in time, without having the authority from the board, we haven't entered into serious negotiations because of process, we can't. But as an example, a possible outcome could be we could explore public use, which currently right now in the 1,000 acres, you have 0. So that's just an option to consider. And I think Commissioner Starkey referenced, when you have something heavily encumbered like that, it would clearly be reflected in the actual, the final cost as well.
You also would be picking up the liability of the bank.
That is
For
also
future
true.
maintenance.
That's also true.
And Keith, I've got a phone call this weekend over Kent Grove. We have property up over there, and there's an access to a park that's right there.
Yep.
The road is in such deplorable condition, they can't get to it. So that'll be one of my asks coming up later on today, hopefully, or I'll give you time to look at it before I bring it up next meeting. But
Thank you.
So, I mean, we got to still take care of what we've got, but if I've got, again, a protected resource that's there, I'm going to be very wary of it. And frankly, if there's value to the mitigation bank, I'll flip the other coin. If we can become the mitigation bank and make money on the other end of it, that could be something to look at. So for that, I'll support taking a look at it further, but again, I don't want to spend money that's not going to really provide any extra benefit for us.
Yeah,
So-
Commissioner Mayor, that's not the intent here. This is just put it on the list, and the opportunity may or may not be there for future generations, boards, what you're talking about, what have you. So just no harm, and I thought to get it on the list, to take a look at, and it's there, being a Boy Scout, if you will.
So putting it on the list doesn't bind us in any way, so, yeah, because there's a lot of particulars if you buy a property that's got this kind of bank in it, the responsibility you have for it in the future, and how much is left to be purchased or what, for a bank, so be good to know all those things, so,
Correct.
yeah. Okay?
You
Entertain.
had a motion, was there a second?
Got a motion? You got a
Happily second.
Okay. By roll call vote?
District 2, Commissioner Waitman.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Bradford.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you, board members.
Okay. That's the last item I have on the list. So that will end the consent items. We'll move on to our regular items, R38.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Charles Pitos, Planning and Economic Growth. Item R38 is going to be a discussion on draft policy PM31 standards for horizontal apartments. In various recent BCC meetings, the board has inquired on the status of development standards for new types of multifamily products that are often proposed through MPUDs. In particular, the subject of horizontal apartments. And so today we're bringing forward a draft policy memorandum that's going to help guide the Planning and Economic Growth staff to negotiate MPUD conditions of approval to help deal with this type of product in the county. On the overhead, you'll see the areas of discussion for today that will be covered in the draft policy memo. There's 4 particular items that require input from the Board of County Commissioners, actually 3, but I'll list 4, and I'll explain why in a second. A mandate for amenities for horizontal apartments per prior direction from the Board of County Commissioners. The second one is a clarification of the walkways and corridors between the fronts of each structure. The third is addition to architectural standards for 2-story structures. And then the 4th item is clarification for platting for horizontal apartments. And I'll call them out as we make our way through the presentation here. So we're going to start off with a definition. These slides are full of words. I have them up there in case our friends and neighbors at home want to see what's in the memo. That's the top part. But my bullet points sort of summarize what the discussion is. So we'll start off with the definition. Horizontal apartments are a type of build-to-rent multifamily product that offer an alternative to garden-style apartments. And basically, the build-to-rent horizontal apartment product is about 11 to 13 dwelling units per gross acre as compared to the vertical apartments, the standard garden style that you might see around the county, which come in at about 15 to 24 dwelling units per gross acre. The build-to-rent horizontal apartments are not stacked units. They're distributed horizontally across the extent of the property. And as such, they come in little house looking like buildings that are about 1 or 2 stories tall with 1 to 3 bedrooms. They'll be about the same size as any apartment unit.
And they're separated?
And they're separated, that's correct. They're detached.
So got to be a narrow separation, right?
There'll be a separation, yeah.
Right.
An air gap, if you will.
Right.
They're distributed across the entire extent of the site, and they often carry, not often, but always carry the same types of amenities as vertical apartments, things like lounge rooms, pools, so on and so forth. So that's the definition of what these are. Importantly, and we'll come across this, these are not single-family detached products. They're not single-family detached products. This is a multifamily product. Because they're located on a single parcel of under common ownership, as a typical multifamily product would be organized. And as a result, these don't have any HOAs or CDDs, homeowners associations, or community development districts because they are operated and managed by individual companies, or management companies working them. This is where we're going to add a mandate for amenities, that all horizontal apartments shall provide amenities. This was provided in a direction by the Board of County Commissioners at the April 18, 2023 Board of County Commissioners meeting when we developed the policy guidance for platted build-to-rent developments. So in this paragraph, management's not there today, but we're going to add the mandate for amenities for horizontal apartments. In terms of the site planning requirements, I have here, not listed in bullet points, but highlighted,
all of the different aspects that need to be discussed. So horizontal apartments shall not be organized with more than 3 units deep from the parking lot. This is a key facet of horizontal apartments, that they do not have individualized driveways or individualized garages. They are actually aligned on a parking aisle or a drive aisle. And so you don't want more than 3 units deep off of that parking lot. Likewise, you don't really want 3 housing units deep on either side of a linear park. After 3 units, things become a little bit more difficult to engineer, but also from a resident perspective, to carry your groceries that far down from the parking lot can be a little onerous. Item C says 10-foot minimum walkway corridors. This is one of the clarifications that we need from the Board of County Commissioners. The provision here talks about the walkway between the buildings. So this could either mean the sidewalk to be 10 feet wide, and then you have landscaping further out with the doors, et cetera, of each of the units, or it's 10 feet front to front, facade to facade. There was some discussion that this should be increased to 15 or 20 feet, facade to facade. Letter D there is to connect any available similar external grid networks. So what we're talking about here is that each of these developments are going to have internal pedestrian and bicycle amenities, walkways, networks, and so on and so forth, and that these should actually be connected to the county-wide network that is beyond their property limits. As I mentioned before, horizontal apartments are not single-family detached products because they do not have individual driveways or garages. They are lined up on parking lots. And then finally, F, G, H, and I are basically requirements to follow various land development code provisions as they relate to the vehicular areas, the parking areas, the drive aisles, and so on, landscaping, and so on and so forth.
A good example of this is on Fitchburg, South Fitchburg, on this side of this side of 41.
Yes.
To the south. I forget the name of that project, but it's a very nice project, and the homes are all concrete construction and very nice homes when you walk in them, so.
As an example, yes.
Yeah.
In terms of the dimensional standards, these are some of the standards that we've worked with the industry stakeholders. Lot coverage should be limited building coverage should be limited to 55% of the total project area, with building setback lines established from the external property boundaries, front setback 20 feet, side 15, rear 10 feet, and then internal to the site, building to building, the minimum separation should be 10 feet. Maximum building height should not exceed 35 feet, which is approximately a 2-story structure. And as I mentioned previously, a 10-foot minimum building separation. In terms of the architectural standards, again, slide full of words, but the bullets on the side say it all. This is all language copied from Policy Memo 26, which discussed the single-family residential lots, lot sizes, and allowances in MPUDs, basically the monotony avoidance standards. So this is all copy-paste from that memo into this one to discuss, how to avoid monotony within these developments. Here, one of the clarifications that we need from the board today is to add an architectural standard that says that 2-story structures should not be entirely made of stucco, basically. And then finally, platting and the live local considerations that are included in this draft memo. So, as noted previously, we have answered the question as it relates to single-family detached build-to-rent products, and the definitive conclusion of the board was that these should be platted developments. Horizontal apartments are not platted developments. They're not single-family detached developments. They are multifamily products. As such, currently the draft memo states that these should not be platted for individual lots, as this would make this product type unfeasible to build. However, if this development were to be sold off in the future, the state condo platting standards could be applied in this development. And then finally, the Live Local Act considerations. I haven't outlined all of the different provisions that we already include in various projects in the memo for the purposes of time and space. But basically, we're going to carry all of the provisions and considerations that we already make for Live Local into these types of products as well in the conditions of approval for MPUDs. Lastly, in terms of applicability, basically, if first round comments have not yet been received as of February 2024, then these standards would be applicable. This has been the standard provision in past policy memo guidance, so we're carrying it forward here. It's at the pleasure of the board if we want to make an adjustment to that applicability clause. And then lastly, this is just an example project. This is Stillwell Station. This was approved maybe about a year or two ago by the Board of County Commissioners. It was one of the first built-to-rent horizontal apartment type of projects that the board saw. This is over at the southeast corner, basically, not quite at the southeast corner, just a little south of it, of Old Pasco Road and State Road 52. This development was a model by which we worked with the industry stakeholders to develop some of the standards that were presented today. And that'll complete my presentation on the draft policy memo, inviting comments from the board.
Ms. Starkey?
Can you please go back to the list of the ones that you said we needed to discuss? And you and I discussed some of these in our meeting that we need to. So I think one was the garage and the spacing. So
Oh, yes.
can we go to that first one?
It's not a garage.
So when we were reading that, 10-foot minimum walkway corridors between structures front to front. So we wanted to be sure that there was enough space between the buildings. And it seems like one of the things we're discussing, is that a 10-foot walkway or 10-foot from facade to facade, right? So it's going to be a 10-foot sidewalk or a 5-foot sidewalk with landscaping on each side? What?
The example I saw, Ms. Starkey, was it had a walkway in it, but it did have, I think, some shrubbery on both sides of the walkway as it goes back.
Well, I think we need to we need to be clear what we're asking for there.
I think in some of the product types that you can find on the internet by just going to the various websites of these companies that build these, they tend to show a distance that appears to be 10 feet facade to facade with a 5-foot sidewalk running down the center and a little bit of landscaping on each side.
Right.
And the doorways are sort of recessed into the buildings so that the doors don't actually open out onto the sidewalks. They're recessed in, so they're never impeding the flow of that sidewalk.
Okay.
I guess when you're in an apartment, so these are what my husband and other people, he called it a deconstructed apartment building. So I guess when you're in an apartment building and you're walking down an interior hallway, which my daughter lived in Starkey Ranch, and there was an interior hallway, it was just all concrete. How far apart are those from one side to another? Is there no minimum in design, those walkways within apartment buildings? In law? No? Well, that's interesting.
That'd be a building code type of question.
Mr. Chair, Roy Major, Development Services. I think that minimum is by building code and the walkway minimums for building code. And I think that's also going to vary per construction project. Anywhere from 5 feet is the absolute minimum for a sidewalk. And so for apartment, I think that varies. I think what we're going for here is facade to facade. In the board's opinion, is 10 feet a viable number? Should it be, more than 10 feet, 15 feet, facade to facade? And again, typically, you're going to have a walkway down the middle. So 5 feet down the middle, and whatever remains will be in between the.
Well, I'm going to say it needs to be a little more, because how are you going to get any trees in there? Or, I mean, if you only have
You're not gonna
2
have
feet,
trees.
2.5 feet, if you have a 5-foot sidewalk, you're gonna have 2.5 feet of dirt on one side and 2.5 feet of dirt on the other.
Mulch.
I mean, is everyone gonna have gutters? Are we gonna require gutters? And what's gonna grow in 2.5 feet? So I think it's gonna look like army barracks if we don't have a little more space. It's gotta be a little softer.
Well, you won't, I don't believe you're gonna find trees like oak trees and things of that nature placed in between apartment complex like that.
Well, you can have okay, so.
If you think about it, it'll grow bigger than that, so.
Could you go back to that picture that you had of the other one? I just don't think 2.5 feet is enough from the sidewalk to the facade. The picture, the one that you said was the model?
Oh, yeah,
It's isn't built yet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're creating alleys with 5-foot wide sidewalks.
That's more than 10 feet.
Imagine a young family walking down that path, and then you get two families coming together.
Yeah.
How's that gonna work?
Yeah. How are they gonna pass?
Slums of the future.
So if you change that from 10 feet, to change that to
Say to
12 or
15 feet,
14,
15 feet?
or even 15, you're gonna change the number of units you can get per acre.
Yes, it's going to, it'll affect the density a little bit.
Right.
Should still
You're
keep it
still not
within the
gonna
ballpark,
put
though.
big trees in that walkway in between those apartments, so.
Right. But this is one of the clarifications, it's sort of at the pleasure of the board is 10 feet enough? Should we do 15? Should we do 20? Or another number?
Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a big fan of this project. I mean, what do these sit on? 25, 30 acres? So it's just sprawling rental variously throughout Pasco County. No secret, I'm a huge advocate for ownership and home ownership here. There's got to be, like when we went through the build-to-rent exercise last year when the product wasn't platted, I'm really stuck on having some level of platting on this type of product, because I'm nervous about when they're built, they look nice, but I'm nervous about the future. I'm worried about the quality eroding away. I'm worried about the maintenance. I'm worried about ownership as it changes hands because it becomes a portfolio asset. And we have several of these projects all over the county, and we don't know. I mean, I appreciate them only being 2 stories, but I'm not overly excited about this type of product in large amounts of rental generally. So, again, I just think there needs to be some level of plat, where it's condo plat, or you're going to play house, and then you need to follow our single-family home guidelines. So, thank you. That's it.
Well, I'm not in agreement with platting these. I think there's a lot of people who would like to live like this.
Oh, yeah.
I have a lot of girlfriends who, we were gonna do one at one time, and I think we sent the plan to Sonia. I'm not sure what good resolution it is, but I do think that we're taking care of the rules by requiring that there always be a property management company running the whole thing. When you get houses that are bought by corporations on streets, which we have a lot in here, I think you lose the level of, can you zoom in more on the, right, so this was our attempt at what I thought was a very good quality rental community,
Barry, you remember
built
the
to
name
rent.
of the
This is
unit?
not going to be built anymore, so don't be freaking out over this, but it was a very good design. What I liked about this is the amount of open space that they had, and the housing product is mixed. So it's not, every building doesn't look the same as the one next to it. You have some 1-stories, you have some 2-stories, you have some with garages, you have duplexes, you have quadruplexes. It's just a big mixture of product type, so it's not monotonous. And frankly, and everyone had a front porch, so I'm sad that this isn't going to happen, but, because I will tell you right now, the money for this kind of product is not there right now. But But I do think you can design these in a nice way, as long as we put some parameters in there. And for me, 10 feet from door to door, I don't mind it from side to side, but 10 feet from door to door is just not enough. We gotta get a little more. Huh?
What do you mean door to door?
Well, that's what it is right now.
Side to facade.
The front of one
the
of
doors
these
on that? I
to a
was thinking
front of
on
one of
the
these
end, so.
is 10 feet right now.
Yeah. Well, the product I've seen over on Fitch 4, it was a very nice product. I walked in it. Again, it was all block construction, 10-foot ceilings.
Are you talking about the next Metro one?
No, it's,
Yeah, that's the one.
That
Yeah,
one?
I didn't like that layout, but,
54 and
it looked very nice. I mean, if you were, retiree age or whatever, and just you and your wife or something,
yeah, and your dog, because these are great for people who have pets.
they have amenity with a pool and a workout room and all that in that product.
So I hear that.
I thought it was a very nice product, so very well built.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So let's say it's a very nice product right now, right? Let's go 30 years down the road. Things may change. Market drops, all of a sudden it goes.
Well-
The other thing to think of is, think about a senior. Right now, if a senior owns their own house and they're homesteaded, they're protected, they know they can live there for a long time. If the market, like it's done in the past 5 or 6 years, has gone through the roof, or our rental market is actually higher than Tampa, all of a sudden what you've done, and the prices go up on it, those seniors, right there, just like we saw the lady this morning who's gonna move out because of insurance, now because of rent going up, they're gonna have to go. So what's gonna happen? They're gonna have to find somewhere else to go. If you have home ownership, whether it be a townhome or frankly a 45-foot lot, it's a lot more secure for people to either start their family or keep their retirement, know they're in a secure place. Right now, we're seeing live local, right? We don't know what's gonna happen yet, right? If that goes and we got lucky with, I think we did a good job fighting it out front, getting the word out to kind of like create that awareness, and we didn't have anything more than 2 applications we originally had. But what if next year you get 20 of these things coming in, and they come forward? And what if the legislature puts a clause in there that you can have all the internal components you want to protect yourselves from going to live local, and the legislature wipes all that out, and they change law where you can't put that in, and that becomes null and void? Now what have you got? And now you keep on
It's hard
loading these
to-
things up with rental properties, it goes the other way. I want to see people own their home. I want to start the family.
Well, we're going to have discussion about our surplus property here in just a little bit, so I'm glad you guys feel that we should have home ownership. But I'm going to tell you, there are people who, say, just moved to the county. They don't want to live in a 3rd floor of an apartment complex. They may have pets, and they want to live in a community before they buy. I mean, I just met the president of PHSC, and he's renting before he buys. I have girlfriends and who have no kids, have a lot of equity in their house. They want to get their equity out, but live in a place that they feel is safe. I think these are very safe, and are looking forward to maybe having this opportunity to live in a place like this. So I think there's a market for it.
There's a market out there for it.
I really do think there's a market for it. Young professionals, people who are working from home, again, who have pets that don't want to be in an apartment complex. So we just have to put some guidelines around there to make sure.
What size property is this is on?
Well,
Is it like a 20-acre piece or what?
yeah, these projects typically come with 15, 20 acres or so, plus.
The kind of desired spots are about 25 acres is the sweet spot. About 225 to 250 units is typically what they're going for.
Yeah. Well, the one I visited was very nice. I would not have mind living in that apartment complex. I mean, it was very nice. Walk in it, 10-foot ceilings, all glass, and opening for the family room and the kitchen area and all. You thought you were in a much bigger place than 1,000 square feet. So I was really impressed with it, and it was very well run, because you could tell that with the pool and the facilities they had for their residents.
So the questions you wanted us to decide were, one, the space from door to door.
Right.
The width. So I would say minimum of 15 feet.
15?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So I know when I did my safe homes and I put a new front door on, I think the way it was my door at the time was an in-folding door. And hurricane codes was better if it was a door that went out.
That's correct.
Okay, so you're taking these doors in, is it gonna make it, these things less,
Put your
more
hinges
more
on
vulnerable
that
to
outside.
hurricanes than
Well,
the out-facing? Is it gonna be a factor in that insurance?
No, the images that are, I was trying to describe images from the different company websites that build these things. The door is recessed in. In other words, there's like a porch, yeah, where the door isn't right on the walkway or on the corridor. It may itself be about 3 feet, 4 feet back.
Deep.
Deep, yeah, into the structure itself.
The
And so
ones I saw, they actually had a couple of chairs you could sit out by the doorway there.
It's still opening in the
Little area.
proper way, swinging out, right? But it's not swinging out into the walkways, into the corridors where the travel is taking place.
It doesn't go any further out than the wall of the unit itself.
Right, but were you saying that, or did I misunderstand? Is the door gonna be opening in or opening out?
No, it'll still open out, as it
Oh,
should.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll
I
open out.
misunderstood that, okay.
But it doesn't come past the wall
Past
of
the walkway
the
that's there.
apartment, yeah.
yeah. Thank you, Commissioner.
But I still think you need more than 10 feet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So 15 feet,
Okay.
front to front.
That's understandable.
I don't remember what you had side to side.
It's 10 feet side to side.
All right. Are we requiring gutters? Do they
Not
need to
in
have
this
gutters?
memorandum.
Huh?
Not in this memorandum.
Don't they have drains there close by? Because if not, that water and all is going to be covering those sidewalks and all. I don't know if that's part of the construction or not.
We've seen them done both ways, with yard drains in between the units. And that's why when Terry was talking about, you get these things more than 3 units deep, it's kind of hard to engineer, because a lot of times the grading and such, you'll need yard drains.
Right.
Also, those who do choose to use gutters will often put the downspouts into the yard drain system. There's no requirement for gutters in the Florida Building Code. And so it's just a preference of that developer.
They could have those chains. Those look so cool. Okay, what else was,
Can we hang on the gutters for a minute?
oh, sure.
So I think the gutters is a good thing, because let's face it, we've seen, all right, so I was at one of these complexes, you look in the backyard, all the gutters were there and all the mulch that was there, was all pushed right away from the low rain.
Yeah.
So if you don't have control of that rain,
A lot of them,
you're gonna
I
ruin
think a
all
lot
the
of them
mulches on the
use,
side, all that
a
stuff
lot of them
floats
use
out.
stone rather than mulch, because mulch floats when the water gets
And then
high in there.
it gets
so.
hotter.
But it's a point, there's a lot of roof coverage here, and so.
Is there any requirement in building code for that, Mr. Major?
No, sir.
The
No, sir.
board used to have a requirement in the LDC for gutters on single family. It was moved several years ago.
Walkway and corridors, architectural design standards for 2-story.
Was there a reason for it being removed?
Am I on? I don't know if I have a clue.
Yes, sir.
So, and as far as the 3 deep, I'm not a fan of 3 deep either. I don't think it should be more than 2.
You're not a fan of what?
He's not a fan of 3 deep. I mean, you park out in the parking lot and you got to carry groceries, whatever that, what would be the length of these units, you know, offhand? The length, not the width, but
Let's see.
I'll give you a first.
Sir, from
It would depend on the
While I
type
was
of
looking
unit,
at
yeah.
that, take a look at the first picture under the letter P, coming all the way down the second grouping, where it says, where it goes 3 deep. From what I can see, you can have parking across the street, in front of on the left side of it, or on the back side, it's on the other side. So you got some substantial walking to do there.
has the design been 3 deep?
We-
The ones
we-
we've seen?
We've seen some that have 3 deep. We've seen product that goes even more, 4 to 5. But as
Oh.
Mr. Major has pointed
That
out,
doesn't
it gets
work.
very difficult
Yeah.
from an engineering. You need the
Oh,
space
okay.
We
to
won't see
accommodate
those.
that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to
Yeah,
do
because
that.
when you factor in that all these units have water, wastewater, likely irrigation, maybe cable conduit underground, and a yard drain, and a sidewalk, and all of these have fenced-in backyards typically. And so you factor all that, to engineer those 3 and 4 units deep gets tricky. It does.
Are you done? What was the issue that you bring up? Because I want to bring up 2E. when you're
Well,
done.
The gutters was an issue, the 3 deep's another issue. I mean, frankly, the way this map shows on the Stillwell, if you look even on the top right where the pond is, someone's gotta walk, if they get the lucky parking spot at the very end, they gotta walk down 2 and over 3 to get to their house too.
No, there's a sidewalk there, you just can't see it because of the tree cover.
Oh, no, I'm saying, you gotta walk, if you don't get that very end spot, you're walking down 2 and over 3. If you're on the end unit down there. And if you're back on those 4 spots are cut, now you're even down another section.
You don't
down
have
there.
any neighbors on 2 sides of you. There's a trade-off. Yeah, that doesn't bother me. But I do want to talk about 2E, because in our design, we did have some houses that had garages, and I don't know, in this design, it looks very monotonous to me. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to mix that up. So I would say garages are okay in a certain amount. Why not?
So Mr. Chairman.
In the townhomes in Starkey, in the multifamily in Starkey Ranch, there are some of those product that have garages. And those, I can pull them up, but you know where I'm talking about because you live near there. There are
on
some
fence
garages
post?
in some of that multifamily product.
Those townhomes on fence posts you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that we should allow some. There may be some great spots, even in this one, where they may want to have it. So, I mean, I see them detached here, but I don't have any problem with allowing some to have a attached garage.
Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, the policy memo 16, which defined the platted built-to-rent developments for single-family detached product, one of the defining characteristics was an individualized driveway and garage. If you had these, we basically said, thou shalt plat. In other words, we're going to treat a single-family subdivision that is for rent as any other single-family subdivision. You're going to plat them. But that was a key definition point in that policy discussion with the industry and the board at that time.
I was going to say with that, including here, does that undo that a little bit?
Well, what can potentially happen is to increase a mix, potentially,
Right.
the board could, because these are negotiated projects anyway, so we're talking about conditions of approval for MPUDs, you could establish a certain threshold that
Right.
you could have maybe 20% of your products can be drivewayed with attached or
It
detached
would be a
garages.
mixed-use type product
Yeah.
that was for rent, so.
And still maintain that single parcel under common ownership concept without requiring individualized platting.
I think that would be fine.
But the question would be, what type of threshold are you looking at? I think 50% would probably be
Too much.
the max, that you wouldn't want to exceed that, because then you're making the situation really gray between a single-family detached built-to-rent and this sort of horizontal apartment multifamily built-to-rent. 20% might be a good starting point, and then if a developer needed more, let's say, they could always make that argument in the case that they would present to the board during an MPUD debate.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Years ago, I think the first one of these we had was over in Land O'Lakes, off either Hill Road or Bell Lake Road. And when in that area, part of the sell that they had was, when you drive into this place, you're gonna think you're driving into a single-family neighborhood, barring the sign that said for lease out front, right?
You talking about the American Home product?
I'm not sure which one it is, I don't wanna go by name, but I'm just saying, so you drive into that one, you'd think you're in a single-family subdivision. That is a lot more acceptable than this, because this here, again, what's gonna happen down the road? Look at the Gulfview Mall. Competition happens around it, other things happen, and all of a sudden, the guy who owned the mall, and let's face it, apartments, they flip them, whether they say they're not going to or not, potential's there, and that's what the market tends to do. 5 years they built it up, they rent it out at an occupancy, it goes in the open market, people from Connecticut, California, they buy these things up, and now you're just churning money. The Gulfview Mall is an example of the same thing. It used to be a higher line mall, and then now it's dropped down. And if you walk into it now, it's actually kind of depressing. You go into the Best Buy, you can't get into the mall from Best Buy. You go into the next store over, You can't get into the mall from that store. It's just like a storefront out front.
Uh-huh.
So what's happened, the dynamics are gonna change. If this thing goes 30 years down the road, the wrong person owns it, and they're just gonna try to milk it, amenities go down, quality goes down, you've not created a quality place to be.
And this project specifically has competition, because right across the street, there's 400 units that are actively being built, 4-story, 12 buildings. I mean, so the whole, so you have this rental, and directly across the street, you have your Brandon-style apartments going on. So that scenario you described, only the future will tell.
Yeah, there is a market for this product, though.
There is a market, there are markets right now,
Yeah.
but is that the product you want to create? I mean, wouldn't you rather see even like smaller homes that people can either own or buy than just having straight rentals? I mean, we got so many rentals that are out there. Is that the market we want to get? Is that the Pasco County we want to grow?
Yeah.
I got to think we want to see more ownership. I mean, I got young families now, and it was said years ago, right? They told us, oh, yeah, people don't want to own the homes anymore. I will tell you right now, the market out there nowadays for the young kids, they want to own their own home. My kids are growing up, their friends are having kids, et cetera, et cetera. They're all looking for homes. The more property you tie up with these rental properties, the less opportunity you got for a rental home coming in to keep the very families we want to have grow up here and stay here and raise here. They're going to go somewhere else because you took all the land and put apartments up and these rental things up that nobody wants to live in for more than a year or two. I think we got to think long-term. Right in my neighborhood, where I first moved in was Lakeside Woodlands, right by the hospital. You would have probably 20% of the people from the hospital renting properties in that area. High-end, they wanted a home, they wanted to live close to their work, and they could have it. But the rental market's there, and that's a good high-end product, right near Beacon Woods. So those rentals are okay in the right areas, but people can rent a single-family home and move out when they want to go. That's how people do it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may. So the policy memo that we're presenting here today establishes, or would establish, if the board agrees to it, at least a baseline for the Planning and Economic Growth Department to engage applicants and tell them this is the very minimum that we would require of this type of project. This is what we want to see. There may be more that we can tack on a case-by-case basis, but this is the very minimum. But it's still, nonetheless, the decision for the Board of County Commissioners will still be there as to whether or not they would accept that project in the future.
Right.
So this memo essentially would at least pave the way for us as staff to negotiate with the
direction to go
developer
in.
and then bring the question to the Board of County Commissioners and say, okay, we've negotiated this is what it looks like, yay or nay on the project. But that'll happen application to application, like as always happens at the 130 meetings. But this is just a means for us to be able to advance those projects to you all.
Chairman?
And then me.
Terry, the project that Commissioner Starkey brings up that she was describing on Starkey Ranch, I'd like to have a better, I don't know if that's shared or if it's public, but what she described sounds a lot more palatable than probably what will be coming before this board. I'm probably pretty confident that as this project goes and they come in and they seek to build in Pasco, they'll probably be pretty uniform. But if we're going to have this type of product in Pasco, I'd be curious to know the combination of product and the styles that Commissioner Starkey brought about within the project of Starkey Ranch. Because the only examples, real-life examples I've seen in Pasco, like I said, they're not overly exciting.
No. Monotony.
And I just want a better understanding of what they could be and what we could push them to be. So, Commissioner Starkey, you willing to share kind of what you had? I'd
Yeah.
like to look at it.
Again, I don't think that project's going to happen. But I thought it was a very good example of what it could be. Right now, there's no financing for these kind of products. But I think we should do something to stop monotony. And I think Sonia, did you get my latest picture that I emailed? I'm just showing you in Starkey Ranch where they have multifamily with built-in garages. Now, this is a quadruplex, I think, I'm not even sure what it is, but there's not many that have garages, but there are opportunities. And I'm going to go back to something that Jack was saying. Yeah, I do want to see home ownership, but I can tell you, I have family members who can't afford a house. And I just would love for them to be able to get into something safe that they would like with their dogs and be able to live there until they, trying to keep them from living with me. We've done that already, so.
Well, that's
They
part
can't-
of our problem with the marketplace is the
Yeah.
fact that
They're
a
both
lot
on
of young
disability.
people need
Whatever.
something affordable and they can't get into some of these homes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's product out there, I know out in the West Chapel area, I've seen some that 40-foot lots with houses on them at upper range of $500,000 a piece. And of course, they've all sold, but a lot of people can't afford that kind of home, so.
Now, we are going to
I don't
have,
know how you
a-
get it affordable to
these aren't
have
necessarily
ownership.
low-income housing either. Some, I mean, the ones we were going to do, they weren't going to be cheap. I'm just going to say, but there is a market for that. There really is. There's people who want to live like that. So, I just think we should tighten up what we have and kind of see what shakes out. But I do think we have to have a discussion on making sure at some point, our rental, apartment complexes, more the vertical ones,
So what
where
kind of
are we?
direction- What kind of direction the board want to give Terry on this?
Well, we had a
this
few more
product?
that we had to go over, so I think you need to pick a number for the garages, and if there's support, I would say 30% maybe, because I don't think it should be a lot, but I think there should be some.
Up to 30%?
Yeah, and then we did the width.
Amenities and.
And you had a question on amenities. What was yours?
We've got to decide on amenities, architectural design standards for two-story, and then the conversation around platting. So we got the walkway and corridors, we say 15 feet?
15 feet, yeah.
We'll start with 15. So with amenities, I assume we'll advocate for trails within there.
Yeah, and a community pool.
I don't know what kind of trail you're gonna get, but
They ring the
25-acre property.
We had all kinds of trails in ours, but this one
But they
has
have
some.
the one I saw had a pool and it had a workout room.
Yeah.
That's part of it, so.
So how are we dealing with the 100, for every 100 units, you need an acre park for a house? We typically waive that in an apartment complex. Frankly, it's one of our live local tools, so I'm not sure I want to give that up right now to go ahead and write in here that they don't have to ask for a waiver of the 100-acre park per 100, because
Well,
we'll
they don't
get
have-
ourselves in trouble.
They don't have to ask. That's a requested variance from the Land Development Code requirement. Because our Land Development Code has generally been designed for single-family residential development.
Yeah.
And so that provision is typically applied to all residential type, although you can say that it contemplates single-family. As you read the code, it doesn't specifically call out single-family, but it reads as if it's trying to address the single-family style of development. Nevertheless, that code provision is applicable to multifamily, and
I
so
want to keep it.
when multifamily developers come in and they present MPUDs to the board, they're often asking for a variance from that code provision.
Yeah, every
So
time.
they don't have to, but they do.
I know, and if we have some live locals that we can't, that come in on C2 or industrial that we can't stop, that's a tool we have in our toolkit to require that, and I think we need to keep that
Right, you don't
in
have
the
to issue
toolbox
that
right now.
variance. Correct.
That's what I'm saying. So, not saying we won't give these folks a variance if we want to, but we need to keep that tool in our toolbox for Live Local. Any other amenities? These, I mean, you got to think of these as deconstructed
I believe
apartments.
this one,
They're standard, they have the gym, the pool, a little walking area, I mean, it's the same amenity as if what you
Yeah.
get in a vertical apartment.
Yeah.
It looks like they have a path. In this particular one we're looking at, they have a path around that pond in the back. So I don't know where it,
A little backyard.
I don't know where that walkway goes around the property.
Pasco and 52 northeast corner.
So we'll add those requirements for these development type, or these product types.
So Terry, when we go to the two-story, what are you saying, like screened porch? With the
Right, so
architectural design standards?
Sometimes these units are two-story, up to 35 feet. And some of the commentary that was received was that there should be a difference of material type between the first story and the second story, so that the whole thing is not just stucco. Let's say you put like a brick veneer on the front facade or whatever of
Right,
the
and then
first story.
hardy board or something of that nature
Yes,
and above,
right.
so, right.
And the way we,
Where the trails come.
it was noted, was simply saying that two-story units should not be 100% stucco. The first story of a two-story structure should be something different.
Yeah.
And it can be
I'm
selected
okay with
from
that.
the,
That breaks up the monotony of something being the
Yes.
same all the way.
right.
What's that picture we're looking at? On the right side?
This is Starkey Ranch, the Lotus apartment complex.
Yeah.
These are the apartment units that, we're looking at them from the parking lot side of the development, but these units line up against Fence Post Drive, which is a north-south road that connects 54 to Rangeland.
These look nice comparatively to what we have around the county. You definitely, when you drive Starkey and you see them, subconsciously, I think, oh, if we're going to have this, I'd like to see more like it.
You see the hardy plank,
Yep.
you see the brick,
See the stone on one.
there's
Yeah.
just trim work everywhere.
It's not necessarily a sliding door, it's a hinge door.
And you can see how far apart they are from each other on the upper right.
Are we giving you information that's helping you?
Yes, it is very helpful. To be sure, though, this would be classified as vertical apartment.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
it's-
is the next thing on the list to do, once we've settled this question on horizontal apartment.
What else did we have to give you direction on?
So Terry, explain the difference between, what'd you say, condo-style plating, and we know what our traditional plating is, but please explain to me the difference. You mentioned that there's a possibility we could do condo-style plating with these. What does that entail?
That goes through the state process of condominium through it used to be the Bureau of Land Sales. I don't know what it is these days, but the state has a process where you can divide up land in a condominium, and you have to follow Chapter 7, 7.
So then the follow-up would be, does
7-1-18.
that exempt this, if that's done, is this particular way condo plating exempt from live local?
So, condo plating and subdivision plating is a method of dividing property for sale. So, under the subdivision regulations, if you divide a piece of land into three or more lots, you have to go through 177 plating, or you can go through this other process. The condominium plating statute was really designed for vertical apartment buildings, what you'd think of as an apartment building, that each unit is being sold as a piece of property.
They actually have firewalls between them.
Right.
Well, I'm not opposed to that.
So there is what they call a land condo that can be done under that same statute that looks, for all intents and purposes, like a regular subdivision, except for the fact that because they don't go through the subdivision process, they're exempt from the subdivision process in your code, in all local governments' codes, and so they don't have to follow any of those requirements. So what you tend to see is the setbacks are smaller, if they do it that way. It's very infrequent that you see a land condo, except in the commercial setting. There are some people who go through condominiumize their commercial project through the state process, especially south of here. But it's, well, it wouldn't come through us for review, but it's, the land condo is something that is not very frequently used, my experience.
Is it because the process is too bureaucratic? Do we get a better product? It's a level of ownership, like, do we know
Well, they
price
have to,
points? Like-
follow the whole state process on forming a condominium association and going through all of those regulations that are very different than the homeowners association regulations.
But this product
See some of
doesn't
that
have
on
an
waterfront.
association.
Right.
This is just your standard property management firm. There's
Right.
no association a part of that.
Right.
And I think that's been a concern of this board, is having some level of association to keep up with upkeep. Wait.
The question becomes, can a private corporation run maintenance of a piece of property better than a homeowners association or a lay board? I mean, at some point, platting it is not going to help you in terms of long-term upkeep if it's being rented out. And you may actually be digging a bigger hole because now you've got a lay board that's in control of it, that are renters, if that's the way it's orchestrated. But you know, if you go back to the 80s, let's say, and
I can't.
sorry,
I can't.
if we don't remember history, we're doomed to repeat it. Duplexes were popular in the 70s and 80s, and they were a single unit that had two dwellings in it on a lot. If they were built poorly,
You're right,
and they were
Commissioner
and they were in certain areas of a county, they became slums. You know, that's just because what happened in a lot of those situations is single owners bought up a lot of the lots and put them out as rental property, and it became the only affordable housing that was available in certain counties, and it was a minimum housing problem forever. And some counties are still dealing with that. It's not as big a problem here in Pasco, but there are some counties that it's a big deal. But frankly, I think that the focus should be more on design of the project and construction and amenities than whether or not it's platted. I agree with you on the single-family stuff that looks like a single-family development, and, you know, because ultimately that could convert very easily to a home ownership situation if this phase runs in a different direction, and then you're stuck in, it doesn't meet any of the requirements, and it would be hard to divide up. On this sort of multifamily product, you know, I don't know that platting is going to help you much in the long run.
Yeah, I don't think
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'll give it for instance, I'm not going to say where it was, but looked at a place where there's a home on this main street coming in, a little cul-de-sac, not a busy road, kind of like this, but not near to the depth. Drove in, and there was a home on one side, and then one row back was a little bit of a garage that you couldn't drive a car into, but you could put stuff in, and then the home was in the back of it. Something to that effect. And frankly, looking at the value to that house that was disconnected from the street, from the garage, whatever, just devalued the property. Even though location was great, the home was great, I mean, but didn't want to go through that.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna devise these things at a 3D, no access to a garage, and to me, you know, if you're gonna drive into a place, let's say it's down the road, right? And now it gets sketchy. If you're gonna walk 3 blocks in, or even 2 blocks in, it's a dangerous, much more dangerous situation of what can happen to a young person or a young lady walking in with the family, with the kids. When you got a renter there, you don't know who that is. Could have changed. Kids would be a squatter. And all of a sudden, you got to deal with that situation, and now that just degrades the property. You get one accident that happens there, something bad happens in the neighborhood, it goes down, 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 and all of a sudden it spirals out, and like Jeff says, it goes, you know, into a very bad situation, and now the properties get devalued. I think we need to really focus. If we want to really focus, let's go focus that people can afford, or townhomes that people can afford, to help them get a start. But to go take up our property that's out there, and I say our land, they're privately held, converting all these things over, you're not getting the base that you want for the long-term future. I mean, do we want quality? Do we want to be premier? Or do you want that?
Okay, we've gone quite a while on this, but I got a time certain here at 11:45, so what's the pleasure of the board for?
Well, I want to know,
Right
Terry,
direction.
I keep asking this, if you could do it a little faster, have we hit everything you asked us to make a decision on?
Yes.
So we did the monotony,
We did the 15 feet walkway. We did the 2-story differentiation of the facade in terms of not having it all stucco. We said up to 30% of the units may have individual garages or driveways. And we talked about the mandate for amenities. And I think the plating question is
yeah.
per the
No.
county attorney's
Yeah.
explanation.
We want more, we want to make sure there's architectural variation to avoid monotony.
And Chairman, well, and Terry, the point of, with garages, let's really study that. Because if we don't have that, the likelihood of a storage facility coming right nearby real quick on a prime time job creating site is highly likely going to happen. So, you know, let's.
I guess that raises a quick question. Previously, we said up to 30% of the units may have individual garages and driveways. Does that, instead of being an option, does that become a requirement?
No, I don't want to make it a requirement. Have these unattached storage, garages and storage. I know my son, and he rented one.
Sorry, members, I apologize, we're having some issues with the clerk being able to hear. Are we
We're
working
not
through?
recording.
Mine?
Perhaps this one might be.
It's not mine.
Commissioner Mariano.
Check 1, 2.
What's the
The investment portfolio presentation, and we have someone traveled to get here.
That's it for you, no more comments.
Well, they're still coming. I thought it was Jack for a minute.
Mr. Chair.
All right, this is presentation only. Are we done with that? Boy, we took a long time. We didn't take,
I
are we
understand
taking
that.
comment from the public on this?
No, I know that. Okay. Hey, listen, this time certain for 11:45, the person came from quite a ways off to be able to do this.
Oh, here it is.
So we need to take care of it. But have you got the direction, or are you asking for some kind of a motion from us on this item?
The motion would be to direct the Planning and Economic Growth Department to a course of action, which, if the board is okay with the provisions that we've talked about today, that would be the course of action that we would then implement in the policy
Do we
memo.
do that and then bring that back to us, or?
Mr. Chairman?
Well, we would go ahead, I'm sorry, Terry, we would go ahead and implement it. Of course, the board would see the revised policy, but I think we've gotten the information from the board that we need in order to finalize the policy. And then, of course, as projects come in, that's a different matter.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I mean, I hear one voice coming out and they say, we're going to take that as the answer. 15 feet. We're going to say 30% is acceptable or not. You get one answer. I mean, I don't think we're anywhere near done with this thing. I'd like to see it come back in the next meeting.
Well,
There's
I think,
There's no way we've had a full discussion here, and I haven't even heard from Commissioner
Well,
Bradford.
we can't continue it now, Rich. I mean, we can continue to next
We can
time.
continue it this afternoon if the board would like.
That's
Or-
fine, but I'm not through discussing this.
Okay. Let's discuss it this afternoon.
But I think Commissioner Mariano brings up some things that need to be discussed in a workshop setting with a lot more information when we're going to start discussing rental versus purchase and what are the right proportions.
Okay.
We don't have nearly enough of that information.
So I guess the
Yeah, but
consensus is to
we
bring
should
it
have
back
that
to us.
So let's get through our time certain, and then we can bring back any final discussion if staff has had an opportunity to maybe address some of the board's issues. And if we are still at that point this afternoon, then we'll bring it back and/or workshop it, whatever the board would like to see.
All right. So we'll continue to this afternoon. We'll go on to item
It's R42.
42, R42.
Mr. Chair, R42 is the semi-annual investment portfolio presentation and market update. At the podium, we have Scott Stitcher, Director with PFM Asset Management. He's going to go over the market update as well as the portfolio that PFM manages for the county. And also with him is Matt Lazar. He is the Finance Director with my office. And Mr. Lazar is going to go over the portfolio that he and his department manage for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Madam Clerk. Thank you for the introduction. Let me see if I can get our presentation up here. Yeah, here we go. So as Madam Clerk mentioned, I'm going to provide a little backdrop on what occurred during the quarter and sort of paint the picture for maybe what to expect in the coming year. Before we get into looking at some of the specifics of your assets and the portfolio that we are responsible for. So they were calling for a slowdown during the quarter. They, being the economists, were calling for a slowdown during the fourth quarter. And if you call a GDP reading of 3.3%, then I'll say we got that slowdown. Third quarter came in at 4.9%. Fourth quarter at 3.3%. For the full year, growth came in at 3.1%. Again, economists were calling for 0.2% for the full year. They were calling for a recession, and we definitely avoided a recession. It was a great year for the economy as a whole. Now, inflation continues to rear its head. We are seeing it starting to cool, but during the quarter, it cooled slower than expected. We got a CPI reading last week, came in a little higher than expected at 3.1%. The expectations were for 2.9% reading. PCE, which is personal consumptions expenditure, is the preferred gauge for the Fed. It remains elevated as well at 2.6%. The core reading at 2.9%. More recently, though, that number looks much better. It's now hovering, if you annualize the last two quarterly readings, hovering around 2%, which is, again, the Fed's target for inflation. So we're getting there. We're starting to see some cooling. However, I mentioned growth being quite strong during the quarter and for the full year, and that's because the employee continues to have a job. If you look at the unemployment rate, it stands at 3.7%. It's been below 4% for 2 years running now. 2 Fridays ago, we got new job growth at 353,000 for the month of December, which was double expectations. If you look at the job openings to unemployed ratio, that currently stands at 1.4 times. So that means there's about 1.4 jobs for every individual that's looking. So that is down from mid-22 when it stood at 2 times, so 2 jobs for every person looking. The Fed wants to see that number at 1 times. So with strong jobs growth and reacceleration of earnings, it's enough to kind of give the Fed a reason to pause right now from the standpoint of reducing rates, which is kind of what the market is now pricing in, is the next move will be the Fed will reduce interest rates. The market had priced in a move in March and in May. The Chair Jay Powell was pretty clear that they're not planning to cut rates in May. And that expectation has now been kind of pushed out to June. So there is a disconnect between the market and the Fed. The Fed is saying 3 rate cuts in 24. The market still thinks 4 to 5. So there's a saying out there that you don't fight the Fed. And so time will tell how many rate cuts we get this year, but it looks like it will be some time before we get that first rate cut. Now, during the quarter, interest rates did fall dramatically, anywhere from 70 to 80 basis points along the Treasury yield curve. And you can see that reflected in the dotted line, which was the end of the third quarter, versus the blue solid line, which is the end of the fourth quarter. And that's a good thing for long-term investors such as yourself from a price appreciation standpoint. As bond or yields go down, bond prices go up. There's that inverse relationship. So that's a good thing. Let me stop there and just see if there are any questions about the economy or the expectations here for 2024 before I hand it over to Matt to go into some of the details of the overall assets.
Any questions from the board? I don't see any.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, again, Matthew Lazar, Finance Director for the Clerk's Office. So when Scott said, don't fight the Fed, that reminded me of when my mom used to say, you also don't fight the women in your life. So thank you, Scott, for childhood memories. But kind of going through the portfolio, what you're seeing right now, this item goes in conjunction with what you also are going to see in your board packet, which is the quarterly performance for the county's portfolio. So at this time, or as of December 31st, the county had an investment portfolio of about $2 billion. 1.5 was deemed unrestricted, and what that means, it's not tied directly to a debt service or a bond issuance. So that is what you're seeing on this slide, and really what we're trying to show here is, with what Scott has been saying, we are trying to be as agile and diverse in our investment portfolio as possible. We want to be able to react to the changing market. At the same time, we want to be proactive. So you'll see anything ranging in maturity from 25 days to just under 2 years. That allows us to make those moves and stay in compliance with the investment policy. I think what you're really seeing, though, on here is how much the county has grown in the 10-plus years. I think if we would have had this conversation 10 years ago, you would have seen the breakdown you're seeing in the top left would have been Florida Trust and maybe sprinkled with a few CDs, but the change in the investment policy has really allowed for the county to take advantage of the market in different avenues. So you can see we have certificate deposits with some of the local banks, as well as kind of just, branching out to obviously PFM and a lot of the different local government investment pools. On here, again, to correlate it to your packet, of the items we received for the period ending December 31st, the county has seen about $6.5 million in return on investment, which I think obviously you can extrapolate that out for the year, but we are getting in line with how it was pre-COVID, which I think is a very important thing to keep in mind, especially as you guys go through budget season and you guys are talking about capital project that really does kind of come into play on this item there. So going over to the next slide, this is the sector analysis.
Could you go back to that slide? So when I look at the Morgan Stanley, you got like 25 million, and it's NA, and JP Morgan Chase NA, as far as expected yields or monthly average yield. Why is that?
So when we were looking at those are with so we bank with JP Morgan, and those are just liquid funds that we have invested. So it's very minimal return. It's more of a safekeeping. So if we have a large expenditure that is coming up, we can easily move funds between. We are currently looking into moving that into a different investment avenue to see if we can get a better return. But the original thought process behind there was just to make sure to keep it with a local banking institution that allows us to make expenditures on a timely basis.
I mean, I got to think you can get someone who would probably give you like 1% if you're going to keep that much money in there.
Yep, no, and that's what we're considering now, especially with a lot of the short term. We have a lot of funds. There's not as many local investment avenues that can handle that large amount of funds, so it's finding a place to safely put those large amounts. So we've been in conversations with a lot of different investment avenues kind of reaching out to us, especially as you guys get more bond issues. We get a phone call every week about kind of branching out. So we are looking actively in those two markets right now to make
I mean, even if you had to divide it up to have more accounts to get that security, if that's what you needed, but there's got to be some type of return there somewhere.
I was just going to add that, to your point, that these investments are really overnight. It's a liquidity tool, and those data points really don't exist for that type of investment, and that's why you don't see it on the page. But to your point, it is earning a yield. It's just not a yield to maturity or an weighted average.
What's your average daily balance in those accounts?
So it's around what you're seeing in there, the 25. We try not to exceed the $25 million. That is the buffer to make sure that we are able to.
So when the money comes in and out, and you got a $25 million balance,
There's
somebody's
two
gonna
of
make money
them.
on that.
There's two of them.
I know, that's what I'm saying, both of them.
There's
JP
maybe
Morgan
even
and
three of
Morgan
them.
Yep, so and that is why we are looking into making those changes. Again, this is, when we move that money, it's the ability of when we work with these local government investment pools, we have to give advance notice, sometimes 48 hours, 72 hours in advance to pull down money. This gives us the ability to, if a large expenditure is coming through for a project or anything, it could be payroll, we're able to quickly make that change. So we're trying to set that standard with the other local government investment pools to make sure that if we were putting in their market, we have the ability of those funds. We don't have to wait 72 hours, so they can plan accordingly, so we have those available. But these are the two items we're looking at now to make changes with. So.
Okay.
Alrighty, so in here, this is taking the investment policy and the different limitations that are set in that investment policy and kind of just showing it in graph form. So the gray outline is the limitations per the investment policy. The shaded in blue area, that is the current investment as of December 31. So really, we're going to go straight down to the bottom there, the Florida Prime, to point out that was 0.1% over what was allowable per the investment policy. Normally, that is well below that, but the reasoning behind that, in December, a large increase in tax revenue came in, which had the large impact in there. Obviously, it was only 0.1%, but again, we've come up with some checks and balances within finance to make sure we don't have that occur again, but that is what attributed to that. There was a large increase for tax revenues in December. So that is all I have. Any other questions for me?
No, we're going to have one for the administrator in a second. Are you done?
I'm done, but he's got some more for you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll wait.
Okay. I'm going to fast forward here to the portfolio that we are responsible for. So Matt focused a lot on, liquidity, and you'll recall that this is operating money. It's governed by State Statute 218.415. The main two objectives of that statute is safety, liquidity. However, it does allow you to earn some yield and earn a competitive return as well. And that's what we manage the portfolio for, is to earn a little bit of extra return on the county's assets. So that's what we're looking at here. This is a summary of the portfolio we manage. You'll note that we ended the year and the quarter at $395,117,000. The duration, which I've talked about before, which is the interest rate sensitivity of your portfolio, stands at about 1.71 years versus the benchmark at 1.75 years. The last time I was here, we were maintaining duration short of the benchmark to the tune of about 95 to 97%. We've lengthened that a bit in this rate environment to the 97 to 100% range. And you're likely going to see us maintain that level as long as it looks as though the next move by the Fed will be lower. So we're comfortable taking on a little more interest rate risk in your portfolio. The number I want to stop on, though, before we get to performance, is the yield at cost in your portfolio. And you've heard me talk about this at previous meetings. Last time I was here, the yield at cost in your portfolio was about 2.88%. You can see at the end of the fourth quarter, it stands at 3.81%, and into early February, it's now at 4%. Why is this important? Well, you're locking in income at higher yields. That means higher interest for longer. So when interest rates do fall, this portfolio is going to reset much slower than a money market fund, a local government investment pool, or a bank account. So this is, again, a long-term portfolio to lock in income for longer. And you can see that the yield at cost is starting to move towards the yield at market. So your patience in letting the market come to you after this cycle of rising rates is starting to be rewarded. You'll note a highly diversified portfolio in the upper right, high credit quality in the lower left, S&P credit quality, AA for the overall portfolio. And then we show you the duration distribution in that lower right. How do we get to the 1.71? The blue bars will show you how we get to that number. And I'll note that we are overweight in that 0 to 1 year time frame, which I'll call dry powder. That is securities that will mature in the near future that can be reinvested at higher yields.
Interesting.
So let's look quickly at returns. That's what you're really most interested in seeing. And I mentioned earlier, we had falling interest rates during the quarter, and that equates to really strong returns for the fourth quarter as well as the trailing 12 months, the 1 year figure. We give you total return in percentages in the bottom, and in the middle, we give you total return in dollars. You'll note the portfolio was up 2.65% for the fourth quarter versus the benchmark at 249, and after fees at 264. So about 15 basis points of outperformance during the quarter. What we're most proud of is the trailing 12 months, up almost 5% for the year versus the bench at a 428, and then after fees of 492. So about 64 basis points of outperformance on a net of fee basis, 68 basis points gross of fees. I'd be remiss if I didn't point you to the dollar returns, about $18.6 million in total dollar returns for the year. That's what the 5% equates to. For the quarter, about $10.1 million. I want to focus on that 3-month interest earned number, $3.4 million. And if you extrapolate that out over the next year, that figure is roughly $13.6 million. I think that's a conservative figure for income over the coming year in this portfolio alone, compared to last year at $10.7 million. So it's almost $3 million more is, I think, again, a conservative estimate of what to expect in income over the next 12 months. Why am I focusing on that number? Income acts as an insurance policy in your portfolio, so it guards against any price fluctuations that may occur. Income is typically the largest component of total return, so as that number increases, your total return should continue to excel, and any volatility in the marketplace should be buffered by the income in the portfolio. So it's been a long time coming. It's kind of fun to do these presentations once again. It was a really good quarter and really good year. So let me stop there and just see if there are any questions.
Well, I have a question for the county administrator.
Ms. Starkey?
How do we reflect these when we go to do our budget, this money?
Glad you asked. So we have, first off, this is all pooled cash, right? So this is from various funds across funds. So your enterprise funds, for example, are part of this pooled cash, right? So your solid waste, utilities, across all that. We do revenue projections, just like we do for the taxing vehicles. We have projections on what interest income is, and that is actually baked into all of the models. And so it is baked in as a top-line revenue number for departments and areas that are drawing out of funds. So in short, it's accounted for. We always go back and we'll back check things as reality sets in, right? So we do a projection, but then we cross-check how those projections did with reality.
Well, in my future budget hearings, I'd like to see, this called out in whatever fund it is. Just a little more transparency.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Mr. Mariano?
Mike, what about tourist development revenues with their reserves? Is this part of the mix with that? Are we actively working to, let's say, help tourist development create revenue for their own items?
So, I mean, like I said, it's across all funds, so I would imagine that would be part of the pooled cash, and there is interest income that comes in across all funds. So I think the answer is yes, but let me go back and validate that for you.
So I mean, and this is probably different with other funds too, when you get that extra revenue that comes in, do you proportionally break it out to each department to put the money back into those?
It's proportioned by the pooled cash, yes, sir. So if utilities or solid waste, for example, is 50% of that, then that interest income goes back in terms of the proportionate as to what they had invested. Does that make sense? It's proportional.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to echo Mr. Carballa. He is correct with what he said.
I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. At this time, we will recess for lunch and be back at 1:30 for a public hearing.
And then we are going to do our housing, our
Pasco County waterways and wildlife depend on you to keep them healthy. Excess fertilizer, grass clippings, trash, oils, and pet waste wash into gutters and storm drains when it rains. Stormwater carries these pollutants directly into our lakes and rivers, creating an unhealthy environment for fish, waterfowl, and other aquatic animals. Storm drains are meant for clean rainwater. Most other discharges are illegal. If you suspect an illicit discharge, please contact Pasco County Department of Public Works at 727-834-3611.
Welcome to Pasco County, in the heart of Florida's pristine nature coast and the Gulf of Mexico.
Comprising an area of more than 740 square miles. Tourists are drawn to Pasco County for its 20 miles of shoreline and 100,000 acres of unspoiled wilderness favored by lovers of the outdoors. Pasco County isn't just about recreation and tourism. It's 30 miles north of Tampa,